Humans and machines have interacted as far back as I can remember. We use machines for the sake of convenience, for the sake of efficiency, and for many other matters while we focus our attention on something else that is subjectively deemed a priority. Family, hobbies, work, etc. So, because you have such a relationship with machines, it would not surprise me if you started using AI or artificial intelligence for productivity and other related things while you focus your mind on something else. Just like any other human machine interaction, there will be opposing views in which on one side they would be extremely against the use of AI because it's seen as some form of antagonistic innovation or tool, while others embrace it and see it as human progress. With everything in this world, there's always one thing that needs to be maintained. Every interaction with something that can make our life easy should be done or used with moderation. Everything that we consume, from food to alcohol to technology, must be done in moderation, and if not, there will be consequences. The human body is designed with specific purpose. And some of those purposes decline whenever we give away some level of autonomy to machines. Now, I'm not a person that dislikes innovation in technology and AI. There's so much of tech around me. There's so much of tech around my practice, my home, that I wouldn't know where to start. But there are limitations to my interaction, and it must be done in moderation. To further extend the observation and conversations that are being held in the practice about this interaction is the fear of being obsolete in the future. And in our conversations, we use various different examples that we find in the media. For example, movies like The Terminator, I, Robot, The Matrix, and Tron. Technology is the enemy of the human race, as machines, who in the movies can self learn and become self aware, believe that we are an obsolete species and will not survive the onslaught of the machines until we eventually do. In order for something to become obsolete, however, we need to understand what makes it relevant, what makes us relevant, what makes us useful, and what makes us capable. The one thing that we need to understand is that machines are man made objects, stemmed from our autonomy, designed to solve problems that we have and manage tasks which is made with human creativity. So, what makes a human relevant? If I had to ask you this question, what makes us human? We would receive a variety of answers. There would be explanations from biological aspects that describe our species. We will get psychological aspects which indicate our ability to regulate, read, understand thoughts and emotions, which are linked to our behavior. And we will get explanations about how we are able to feel, which gives us the ability to create, innovate, and express. The list is endless, and that's fine. But what about these aspects help make human beings relevant when it comes to working, getting employed, being part of the labor force, being able to make friends, being able to establish connections, relationships, intimate connections? People work to ensure that their basic needs are met. People work to provide for their families, pay the bond, school fees, and other related matters. And that is understandable in terms of trade, but what makes humans relevant? To understand this, I read through a number of articles to back my definition up for this conversation and effectively create an understanding. And human beings have the capacity in their line of work to engage in language, which means that they are able to understand their line of work and communicate to others working amongst them, gather the information to create tasks to complete the line of work, and delegate it to others in a language that they are able to understand, and a structure that they are able to follow assess problems, find solutions, to ensure good workflow, and manage the assignment with both creativity and autonomy. It does sound like a mouthful, but in other words, our ability to communicate, solve problems, create, and be autonomous enables us to be healthy, relevant working class individuals. This indicates relevancy, effectiveness, and efficiency. So, with this definition, I can create an example of a psychologist. The psychologist is a trained professional that has the capacity to communicate, which includes both to listen and to speak. That is effectively communication. And through communication, they are able to understand the pain and troubles of the patient, note them down so they can gather the information and generate a treatment plan that will assist the client in managing their pains and trouble, which would ultimately lead them to a point of psychological and emotional wellness or well being. This is designing tasks, creating treatment plans that will help assist in solving certain challenges that the client may face, certain problems that we need to solve. Now, there is no hiding the fact that with automations, some professions in other fields of work are being dominated by AI. And that causes concern for human beings, the fear of being obsolete. The moment a machine can effectively and efficiently complete a task faster than a human being, it becomes relevant. And then we no longer feel that we are able to communicate effectively, to find solutions, to solve problems, and get the job done. It's an emotional and psychological impact with negative thoughts about our existence in the world. Some of us have been in the same field for so long. This is all that you know. This is all that you know how to do. And therefore, it's not uncommon to have the feeling of no longer feeling relevant when a machine can take or make your job look easy and complete it effectively in record time. But how do we change this mindset? How do we overcome this mechanical envy? Well, we first need to understand the human machine interaction. I'm going to touch mostly on the social aspect here of human beings when it comes to the human machine interaction. As technology progresses, we embraced it. Even if you dislike the concept of technology, you have embraced some kind of technological innovation. The first thing we need to understand is that artificial intelligence is a machine. It may not be a machine that we are able to touch. It may not be a machine that we are able to turn on with the push of a button, like a washing machine, for example. But it is a machine that we have interacted with in some shape or form. This is the first reality we need to accept. People have created machines and technological tools, again, to solve problems effectively and efficiently while we put our focus on other important things. So, for example, multitasking at home. We have several different machines that we can use to multitask at home. For example, we have the washing machine that does the washing for us while we have the dishwasher running. Um, that's washing our dishes. At the same time, you have an automated vacuum cleaner now that is able to clean up the mess on the floor while you're helping your kids with homework, for example, or you're going out with your neighbor, or there's this some kind of social interaction that's happening. All of this technological innovation we have embraced so that we can put our minds to something else. People have created machines and technological tools again to solve problems effectively and efficiently while we put our focus on other important things. I can give you another example. Instead of waiting long days for something to be mailed by post, we now have email. Instead of waiting for a call to come because the only thing you have is a landline phone, technology brought you the cell phone. Instead of making your way to the library for research, technology brought you the internet. And now, admin heavy tasks are being handed over to artificial intelligence or AI. The human machine interaction is, while not sacred, important for our relevancy if it's done with regulation and moderation and with clearly defined instruction that does not compromise our effectiveness as human beings in the working world or in society. Technology can overpower the workforce in every aspect, not because of self learning and self awareness. That needs to be programmed. And who does the programming? Humans. We would be responsible for this. We would be responsible for our decline in relevancy. We would be responsible for machines to overpower us. And of recent, if I'm not mistaken, AI can now code, so that's interesting. Humans have always been the user, but that can change when the user gives full creativity and autonomy to the machines. And there has been evidence of this over time, maybe not from an AI perspective, but if you had to look at how technology has taken over our lives, maybe this paints a picture. Voice has become text and thus impacts our ability to socialize and therefore communicate effectively and efficiently to solve problems. I remember an era in time when we had this instant messaging going on. I think it was Mixit back in the day. And I noticed that people were very open and extroverted and talkative on behind their screen, chatting away, sending a text. And when we did actually see them in person, we come to the realization that some of them were rather introverted. They didn't speak a lot. They didn't know what to say. Um, it was that kind of interaction where we started to question: is this a decline in face-to-face socialization? So that's one example. Vehicles have become the mode of transportation, effectively reducing the amount of time that we walk, which results in a declining in our physical health system. Apps can make appointments for you. You can have an expert come to your house and fix something, and that reduces the number of problem-solving skills that you have, and thus making you feel less purposeful when you come to think about it. When the internet was introduced to the smartphone devices, always on connections, people could do research on the go wherever they were. BlackBerry called it research in motion. But this created a sense of bias. You see, in the library, you have to consult several publications before establishing your findings. When you had to just go onto the internet on your PC alone, phones never had internet connection, there would be a conflict in decision making because we would have to try and figure out what information are we looking at is credible or not. But you would still have to make notes on your findings, but accuracy in the facts is diluted by credibility. Now, in the just Google stage, we have to take the first link we see and run with it as fact and create an argument or statement. Fact becomes further diluted. Everything that becomes instantaneous, I would say, is dangerous in the sense that if you're just taking something at its face value, is it credible? It's a good question to ask. The more technology has advanced, the more we have given it power because of its convenience, because of its access, because of its ability to solve our problems. But having said that, we are not engaging with anything else that is purposeful, that is relevant, that is helping us keep relevant. The human machine interaction is a relationship. And the first thing about this relationship is that you invited machines into your ecosystem and not the other way around. The moment you shift your power and give the machines that power, you gradually become a part of their ecosystem. And you will be in denial about that until you realize, and that usually is a bit too late. What is the human machine interaction now with AI? If by trend mentioned above, Nearly every human being has interacted with an AI tool: ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, Gemini. I recently started interacting with a generative AI tool called Base 44. It creates apps that will help you fix or create help you solve problems. So these apps, they turn into tools. These tools will help you solve problems. I'm currently creating my practice management system on it, and it's proving to be really great. These tools are magnificent, is the point that I'm driving, in its own way, and they are valuable to our relevancy. So as long as we establish the relationship rule, it is part of your ecosystem. Abuse of machines during this interaction is enabling yourself to give all your autonomy, decision making skills, and problem solving skills to the machine without focusing your mind on other things that require your attention. Effectively, AI is doing the work while you're doing something that is less productive, which indicates laziness. For example, a lot of students were caught using an AI tool to summarize the lectures, which is fine. I think I'm all for AI summarizing lectures. I'm all for an AI tool summarizing what your lecturer is saying. So as long as you go back to your dorm or you go back home and you start highlighting and you start checking references with the textbook. But what's equally important is active listening as well, because through active listening, there's a lot of memory retention that happens. And sometimes we can lose that, natural innate ability to actively listen and recall information if you allow if you allow the AI to take on full autonomy, and problem solving skills. Unless you're establishing a business on your smartphone while the AI is taking notes for you, you have no business doing anything else on your phone. So AI does the work, and you chat to your friends about a party, and then come test day, those notes do nothing for you. I always say that notes are theory, and with this theory, the most important thing to do is to apply it. If you don't know how, if you have the theory, if you don't know how to apply it on to your questions, to your case studies, etc., then it's not working. You're basically regurgitating the textbook in your exam paper, for example, expecting to get an A. Let's take another example where your AI tool is being used to take the test for you, right? What did you retain is the question that I would ask. And more often than not, hardly any retention is made. The moment you give machines all autonomy, you lose certain cognitive abilities, which creates what we call laziness. In other words, that degree you put no effort into obtaining is rendered useless. Our minds require exercise through challenge, puzzles, questions, and exploration. The moment we give that away or choose not to exercise the mind's capability reduces. In other words, our ability to retain professional information, to task manage and solve problems will reduce because of excessive, uncontrollable AI usage. To take it a step further, reliance on the machine will create a further decline in social interaction. And the idea is because you have an AI that talks back to you. You ask it a question, it will answer you. You engage the AI with questions relating to personal life, through questions relating to your exams, your certain questions in your exams, and it will give you these answers. And eventually, gradually, there will be a decline in you asking questions to your friends, delegating or debating answers in that essence, which once was fun, or even asking your lecturer for some sort of help or support. It further creates a social void, should I call it that way. You will not ask your peers, which ultimately will reduce communication significantly. Shallow engagements is all that you will be left with. Hi, how are you? Good. End of conversation. And life goes on. So if I had to break down the decline in communication, it goes like this. Verbal communication has been reduced to email and instant messaging. This is further impacted by asking Google for information. And without checking for credibility, you take the first response that Google spits out on your screen. You don't ask your friends for their insight or their input because the information that you have is enough. It came from the internet, so it must be credible, right? Um, you further decline the interaction with your lecturer, the conversation with your lecturer. It came from the internet, right? So it must be accurate. So you're not asking your peers anything. You're not asking your lecturers anything. And we have something now that responds back to us. So we don't even go on Google anymore sometimes. Or if we do go on Google, we take what Gemini gives us. That summative um, feature, the first thing that pops up. So now we have Copilot and now we have ChatGPT, and we just have to send an answer through there. And then, well, okay, now there's a conversation happening with an AI. Once upon a time, we would have seen that as unhealthy. Today, it's sort of normal. If we are social beings that require social interaction, then there is going to be isolation if this continues, which will bring an array of mental health concerns, which will impact your ability to function socially and occupationally. Imagine trying to have a conversation with a person at work to try and solve a problem that work has given you. And the first thing they say is, let me ask ChatGPT. Let me ask Copilot. Let me ask Google because because I'm not sure of the answer. It also creates. I wonder if the use of AI and Google and all of these machines have created a sense of doubt in our minds. That maybe that's something I should look into for a conversation, a next conversation at least. There needs to be clear boundaries between you and the digital ecosystem that you created. And this is what I call the human machine balance. Right? This is the part where I say you need to leave your room, open your curtains, and make plans with your friends, family, and relationships. Go outside and hug a tree, as my colleague of mine says. The ecosystem you created with your technology that you bought and now you've integrated with AI is still going to be there long after you. But the relationships that you made are finite. The lessons you learn, the work you put into getting your professional degree, all means something to you more than anything else. So you are going to have to keep training your mind and filling it with knowledge. So let's try and we need to try and recover our cognitive abilities by putting our mind to the test. Like I said, our mind loves challenges. The only way to train the mind is to give it puzzles, play Sudoku, 30 seconds, those kind of things. But in the field of work, one of the most important things I have to share with you is that put your mind to it first before you go anywhere else. For example, this podcast is created through observations in the practice. They are trends that I notice and I make notes on them. I create an essay on what is observed. The essay comes from mind with the application of theory that I've learned through my years in college and in practice. But now I need to ensure that what I'm saying to you has merit, has credibility before I put it out there in the world. So I use a Word document, then I attach it to the AI tool and request the machine to note anything that is inaccurate, non-accurate, and then remove it. In other words, When you are getting some work done, note your observations, tasks, and your ideas first. Conduct your research or rely on the knowledge that you have learned in your years of study, in your experience in the workplace. Conduct your research and then ask the AI tool for assistance where needed. This helps keep the mind strong, on its feet, and it will retain the information to solve problems that are similar in nature in the future. This is keeping your autonomy and your problem solving skills. To add to this, our decision making skills will improve because while you are taking down notes and creating tasks before using the AI machine, you notice that you have solutions for what you have written down. And more often than not, the AI tool will give you the same solution you need to implement. Intellectual effort is important. Reading, learning, and understanding is a human thing, not a machine thing. This will help improve not just your occupational functioning, your academic functioning, but also your social abilities. I would test the theory of active listening. Usually, when a person speaks to another person these days, the information that you hear from your peers are checked on the internet for its credibility. The just Google phase has come to that point where somebody would say something to you, you are extremely taken aback by what they're saying to you, and the first thing you do is reach out for your phone. That's fine. But once you realize that your peer is misinformed, you detach yourself from asking the individual again because he is not credible, he is not reliable. Maybe it's a trust thing, or you think they don't know about the topic of discussion accurately. Instead of informing, you further isolate, and that is not right. What your peers shared with you is a perspective. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But what matters is the discussion should continue once you gather your information. It should be a talk, it should be a debate, it should be a flow of ideas and information. You will learn something, they will learn something, bring it together, and you've created what we call a theory, a perspective, a conversation, which is needed. It should be a talk, it should be a debate, and then you will come together and you will solve the problem. Play card games with your mates. Test your knowledge, have a laugh, play 30 seconds. People rage quit more in games and say vulgar and horrible things online more than they say it in person. And that right now creates more negativity in the world than we know it. I think the I think there is a list of the most toxic lobbies in games, and I think Call of Duty is one of them. You would go into those games where you play in an open lobby, join the game, team deathmatch, and immediately you get into it, and people are starting to swear. People are starting to say vulgarities, calling you out. The better you are at the game, the more they get upset with you, and it creates more negativity more than anything else. It is at this point where I would suggest get some sunlight, see your friends. I think the one thing I do miss with regards to older consoles or legacy consoles, they call it, is the ability to do multiplayer games um, together, at home. It's two to four player games where you had four controllers connected to one machine, and you guys are in the same place and you're playing this game. customize Customize the game to the way that you want to, and then go ahead and do it. So an example I could give is that I had an Xbox 360. There was a game called Forza Motorsport 2, and my friends would come around and we would engage in this particular form of game, or play, where we would try to play Top Gear on Forza. So we take a challenge, for example, we'd have a budget, all of us, 10, 15,000 credits. We buy a car, we do it up with the budget that we have, and we race it against each other. Now, because Forza Motorsport 2 is just a two-player game, offline multiplayer, we would have to take turns, of course, to see whose car was better. And we would play around that and we would have so much of fun doing it. Nowadays, I don't think we can do that. But the point that I'm driving is you're not bound to the ecosystem you created. You can leave whenever you want. Enable yourself to learn AI and not rely on it. Enable yourself to integrate AI into your tasks rather than allowing it to do the task completely for you while you're doing something minor and indifferent. It's an AI assistant, not an AI surrogate. How do we stay relevant in the field of work with AI emerging so rapidly? We train our minds through learning and practice. We engage in our thoughts first before we consult the AI. We speak to our peers that have experience and then consult the AI. And most importantly, you spend the time with the people that you love and care about to create the work life balance. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this topic. I'm going to be a bit more intentional in getting more content out consistently. The reason for the delay in the release of this particular topic was because I was unwell and I could not record. But again, like I said, I'm going to be more consistent with the content. And thank you for your time. And until next time.